All right. Welcome, Facebook world. We're just trying to make sure our video feed is all good before we start our podcast. It looks good so far. And then we're going to get started. So please join us. All right. Welcome, Facebook world. Looks good. That's all right. We haven't started recording yet. Okay, let me share this. You can do the same on your Facebook if you want. All right. Okay, now let me pull up our recording and let's see if it goes. All right. I'm ready to go when you are, Matt.
I'm recording now.
Welcome to the Star Wars Escape Podcast. I am your host, Alex Maxwell, and joining me as always is
Mac Lacey. I'm super excited about this episode that we've got coming up here in just a couple minutes. We're going to be talking about some solo stuff. We're going to be talking about some Empire Strikes Back production stuff. Yeah, we're just really pumped to be here with you guys tonight. If you wouldn't mind, it'd be a huge help to us if you'd share this, post on Facebook, like our Facebook page.
yes,
because that'll
more people
help
can
us get...
see us.
Exactly.
And it's not about us; it's about you guys and
it's about the community. Yeah,
and Star Wars.
Who doesn't love Star Wars?
Who doesn't?
All right.
So,
well, Alex.
Mac, how's your week been, man?
It's been kind of crazy so far.
You started a new job.
Yes, and that is going very well. I'm really enjoying it. Shout out to any people from my last job that might be listening. You guys are great. Love you guys. So I started a new place and I'm pumped. It's been a good week so far.
Good.
And I think it's going to keep getting better. So,
awesome.
What about you, Alex?
It's been, if I'm being honest, been kind of a rough week. But, doing this, I'm hoping, it will really elevate everything. And, just like our motto is your weekly escape for all things Star Wars. And so I'm using that this week, too.
It is not more true for anyone than me and Alex. That was a terrible way to say that, but it is the most true for us. I mean, this is how we, just get immersed in something that we love, kind of get to escape from everything else we're doing, and so we really enjoy that, and we want other people to be able to do that. So like us, share us, follow us, all that good stuff.
High five us if you see us walking down the street.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Alex, do we got any news this week?
Oh, do we? Let's jump into the news. So, first thing on the news is Ron Howard yesterday said that they're pretty much finishing up the sound mixing and editing this week on Solo, a Star Wars story. And, if he and one of the things that I've noticed, Mac, is like once he starts sharing things, that means we're closer to a trailer.
Yeah, it's like he gets the go ahead from the marketing department. They're like, you can do this, and this because we're about to do this. So.
And I can tell from the marketing department that I feel like they're ramping up towards something, and I don't think they want to step on the toes of the Last Jedi Blu-ray release that happened today. Right. But it's one of those things of they're kind of prepping everyone like, hey, this is still coming out in May, so remember us. And so I can kind of tell that's what's going on. So, so it's pretty exciting to see they're putting the finishing touches on the tumultuous Solo production, which is a part of our other piece of news that we're going to talk about. But
man, I'm just so excited. I'm ready to shift gears from The Last Jedi. With the DVD release and everything, I feel like I've actually gotten some closure from that. Being able to watch it, again and that kind of thing. So I feel like, for what it is. And I really like it. I really like The Last Jedi.
Sure.
But now, all the things that I kind of didn't know how I felt about, I pretty much know how I feel about them now. I've got a more solidified opinion. So I'm ready to just kind of put it behind us and really, get hyped for Solo coming out in just like 2 months.
I know.
Just a couple months.
It's a weird thing for me because, obviously I'm not just a Star Wars fan. I like comic books and stuff. And so, if I'm being honest with you, Mac, right now at the forefront of my mind is the Avengers movie. And like that, and they're making a huge marketing push with that right now.
Yeah.
And so like, I sometimes forget that Solo is coming out basically, it's basically the same month, but a month later than the Avengers. So it's just one of those things of like, I kind of forget that Solo's coming out because all these good movies are coming out right now.
Yeah.
So,
and I mean, it's wild. We've got, it's kind of one of those things that I think about it when we're doing the show and like getting ready for the show and when we're editing the show. But then like the rest of the week, I'm like, oh yeah, that's coming out eventually. Yeah. Eventually. But no, it's right around the corner.
It really is. It's a weird feeling. Just, we've never had a Star Wars movie this close before to another Star Wars movie. So it's just like
whiplash almost. It's
pretty crazy.
Yeah, but that's not the only thing that was crazy. The production of Solo was
nice transition there.
Pretty wild as well. You like that?
That was good. That was good. I like that.
Yeah. So I mean, everybody kind of knows at this point that Phil Lord and Chris Miller had been let go. They had moved on from the project.
They moved to a farm.
And then replaced by Ron Howard. And then, so we have gotten from an anonymous source. It was an actor who
I'm air quoting right now.
Yeah, this really translates on Facebook Live. Probably not so much on the podcast. But yeah, so basically it's an actor. It's not a marquee actor, so it's not going to be Alden Ehrenreich, Don Glover, Emilia Clarke, anybody like that.
It's like Stormtrooper number 2 or something.
Yeah, some Imperial officer that's So, but basically, they kind of gave the spill on kind of some of the details. And Alex, you want to run us down that list?
Well, I'll kind of quickly go through it. You can find the article on vulture.com. But basically the gist of it, I'll give you the gist of it, is that he's basically said, this anonymous source, he or she has said that when Phil Lord and Chris Miller were in charge, that it was just utter chaos, that the assistant director was the one who was stepping up and trying to actually do everything that was supposed to be done, and basically kind of gave this vibe of like, I almost got this weird vibe that they were kind of like frat boys, like on the set or something. Like it was just like a weird kind of tone on the set, and then they went on to talk about how Alden Ehrenreich, they didn't like his performance, basically, of or his impersonation of Harrison Ford, and that's, to me, like, I could kind of believe the first part, just because you don't want to, like, it's never good PR to fire your directors.
No,
when you're almost finished with a shoot, like it's like
the example is like on Rogue One, even though Gareth Edwards was maybe not quite getting the job done, he was still playing well with others. He was still a team player. And so they kept him on as the director. He's credited as the director, but they actually brought in Tony Gilroy.
Right.
So it leads me to believe that this instance is bad enough that they actually, fired the directors instead of just having like a consultant come in and workshop things.
Yeah, and so like that makes me believe that the first part, at least, a version of that is true.
Yeah.
It's this part that I started like, I don't know, because like I don't see Lucasfilm say, I want you to do your best impersonation of Harrison Ford.
Yeah,
because if that's what
suspicious.
they wanted, they should have got that one guy from the internet who does a great impersonation of Han Solo.
Right.
You know, like Alden Ehrenreich is playing the character of Han Solo. He's not playing Harrison Ford. And we've talked about this before in the podcast. It's like your expectations of him for this movie should not be, I'm going to see the next Harrison Ford, because he's not Harrison Ford. He's playing a character. His interpretation might be slightly different too. You know, like, and frankly, it should be. He's younger. You know, this is earlier in his life. I kind of picture it like, you know, Casino Royale with, you know, Daniel Craig, where he's becoming James Bond as the movie goes on, and by the end of the movie, he's the James Bond we all know and love. That's kind of how I picture this being.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. One thing that when I was reading the article that kind of stood out to me is he was talking about how Lord and Miller would take, you know, like 25 takes, and at that point they're still just kind of figuring it out, and all the actors are like, what's going on, guys? Like, you know, the actors are kind of freaking out because, and then when Ron Howard comes on the scene, he said like 2 to 3 takes, and that was it, is what kind of he's shooting on. And there's 2 ways to look at that, both of which kind of went through my mind. One way is that Ron Howard is just super efficient. He knows exactly what he wants. He's getting in, getting out.
And that's kind of what they said, too, in the article, but yeah. Or...
what cropped up in my mind and got me worried, though, is that he's rushed.
It. Yeah.
Because, I mean, they had to shoot basically a whole movie in reshoots.
I think it's probably a bit of both.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. There. But that was just something that worried me, that they might not have actually gotten the take they wanted. They might have just had to move on sometimes, you know?
Yeah.
Which I hope that doesn't like come through in the final cut. I hope that, you know, sometimes you can absolutely get it, you know, first try, second try.
Right.
But usually it takes a few takes to, you know, get everybody into the groove of a shot. So
okay, so let's go over worst case scenario then. Just like let's speak it out loud. That way we can just like not worry about it internally. Let's just speak it out loud. What would
this is just going to be catharsis?
Yeah. What would worst case scenario be then for that? I'll go first. I think. Worst case scenario, we get a movie like Justice League where it's like clearly it's like 2 movies spliced together for one. It's like you can tell who directed this part and you can tell who directed this part. Yeah. That's worst case scenario to me because that really took me out of Justice League, and I'm a DC fanboy. Like I'll probably bend over backwards to like that one of those movies when I shouldn't.
Yeah.
That one was really hard to, like, defend. It was like, Yeah. So, I don't want to do that for Solo.
Yeah. I think my worst case scenario, and this article has influenced this highly, is like Star Wars Twilight, where it's just, not in, like, the story or anything, but that, like, the performances are just really stale. Like, everybody's just real stiff.
Have you not seen episode 2?
Oh, no, I mean... but I hate it, but I love it. So,
yeah.
You know, I mean, it's...
Yeah.
That's what I fear, is just that the performances are going to just fall flat. Because, I mean, it doesn't matter how, you know, flawless and the story is, you know, how great the visual effects are, any of that kind of stuff. If the performances aren't good, who cares?
Yeah. Agreed.
Who cares?
So, yeah, the article kind of went on to say, you know, when Ron Howard got there, it's like he was a well-oiled machine and he was fixing things and they were doing things very, very quickly. But I mean, I have my doubts about this story, number one. And Pablo Hidalgo on Twitter, he's the story group guy at Lucasfilm. He kind of made some mention of like, hey,
he's a story group guy at Lucasfilm. He is one of several.
Yeah,
there are many men and women in the story group. But
he's like the face of it, though.
For some reason, I don't know why it's him.
Because he's very vocal on Twitter.
Tweets. I guess so. I
think that's the reason why. But Chris Miller actually ended up tweeting, "Maybe don't believe everything you read." So, like, it's one of those things of like, well, of course you're going to defend yourself because you don't want to look like an idiot. But, like, they've been pretty silent on this front, and he felt like he had to at least mention it. So,
Yeah. I mean, I tend to discredit the article on the basis of the ambiguity of the source rather than his reactions, just because, I mean, what else are you going to do if somebody comes out with if someone's just ripping you on the internet,
It's so hard to determine, like, sometimes anonymous sources are real. Like, like those are, one of the things is just like, who knows? You
sometimes it's just like David Prowse, like
David Prowse, yeah. Who knows?
So, yeah, I don't know, but overall, I mean, this doesn't it doesn't just kill my hopes for Solo or anything like that.
Right.
It does plant like a little bit of uncertainty in my mind that maybe wasn't there before kind of hearing this. But I'm still really excited. I think it's going to be okay.
And it's one of those things is like, I'm sure Lucasfilm definitely does not want any of this kind of publicity anymore because, there's already been so much negative attention. You want to really focus on all the positives of the film at this point.
Right.
And, like, I'm sure they don't like this being drudged up again. I'm sure they're ready to move on just as much as Phil Lord and Chris Miller are.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I got someone on our Facebook Live asking us to talk about the Dune remake, but this is I have no idea what that entails.
I don't know anything about it. I'm into it. I'd love to see like a great Dune movie.
All I know about it, and I should really read the books because I know they influenced Star Wars somewhat. All I know is that there's like these giant worms with human faces on it. So that's pretty much my extent of knowledge on Dune, right? Like,
I don't know about the human faces on it. There's definitely big worms.
Okay. I saw a picture once, and it freaked me out.
I've read the book and seen the movie, but it's been years, and also it's a brick. So, but yeah, I mean, Dune definitely has tons of influences on Star Wars, whether it's from like kind of, there's sort of the ideas of the Force in Dune, like vague kind of abstract ideas like that. A lot of like, it's a desert planet, there's kind of like the sand crawlers that Jawas have are like straight out of Dune. There's a lot of stuff like that comes from it.
So do you think any Dune influences are going to be in Solo?
Probably not Solo.
Probably not.
Probably not Solo.
No.
I think probably your episode 4, episode 1, and a little bit of 2. Tatooine is Dune.
Got it.
Basically.
Got it.
But interesting enough, David Lynch, I hope I'm getting that right. Anyway, he passed up Return of the Jedi to direct the Dune movie.
And he's the guy that did Twin Peaks, right?
I don't know.
I think so.
Sure.
I'm pretty sure because the actor in Dune is also the main actor in Twin Peaks. I'm pretty sure, like Kyle MacLachlan, something like that. Anyways,
I know his face.
We're way off now. Thank you, Ethan from Facebook. So, moving on to our last piece of news, which will kind of lead us into our main topic for tonight, which is just crazy Solo theories. And I think this is going to be a really fun episode because there's some crazy,
just wild stuff.
Solo theories. So this is considered a rumor, okay? And it's not even like even if it is a spoiler, I don't consider it a major spoiler. This is what I would call a Target spoiler. Like, you would see this on the shelf at Target if you're just looking at the toys of Solo. Like, you would get this from that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But the villain in Solo that we see with the Kylo Ren-like mask, and can you pronounce his name correctly? Like, I'm so afraid to say his name out loud because it's so strange. Like, Infus. It's
so horrible. First of all, I hate the name. I hate it.
Infus Nest?
Infus Nest is the only way to say it that doesn't sound completely absurd.
It's a strange name. It's a very strange name. And, like, when I was looking at it today, when I was going over some of these theories that I was finding, I was wondering to myself, is this like an anagram? Like, if I rearrange the words, is it going to spell something else?
There's got to be something, or like it's
so weird.
Something. It's just a strange name. It doesn't feel very Star Wars-y to me. I'm hoping for a Lord Voldemort, Tom Riddle situation.
Yeah. So like an anagram type thing. So basically, one of the details from a toy leak. And so again, this is a rumor. If you don't want to listen to it, turn your volume down for a little bit and come back in like 5 seconds. But Infus Nest is the apparent leader of a gang of bikers known as the Cloud Riders. And so we're going to go into...
Well,
yeah.
Are they known as the Cloud Riders? Like, is that on the toy packaging?
Yeah, I'm looking at that.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's like their gang name is the Cloud Riders. And so one of the things that, like, it's a deep cut for Star Wars fans because, like, when Star Wars first came out, like the original Star Wars, A New Hope, in 1977, Marvel Comics had the rights to the comic book series, and so like they did a comic book series before Empire Strikes Back even came out. And the very first issue was about Han Solo gathering a team of like 8 scoundrels and stuff to stop the Cloud Rider gang from like terrorizing this planet. It was basically the 7 Samurai,
but there's 8 of them.
Yeah. And so they called themselves the Star Hoppers, which is just, both of them are terrible names in my opinion.
Yeah. And did they introduce Jackson?
Yes.
In that issue?
Yeah.
It's just a green Easter bunny that has a flight suit on. That's all it is.
Yeah. And so
that's like the prime example of that I point to when it's like, why should the EU kind of have gone away?
Yes.
That.
So yeah, like it's some weird stuff in it, but like basically they take down this gang called the Cloud Riders, and it's so this Infus Nest is apparently the leader of the canon version of the Cloud Riders, if we're to believe this rumor.
Mm-hmm.
Do you believe this?
I don't know. It sounds like something that could have been. It's vague and obscure enough that they could be like kind of bringing it back in to repurpose it. Like a Thrawn or something like that.
Right.
Not that Thrawn's really obscure, but I don't know. But it also just sounds like something that could have easily. It's kind of low hanging fruit as well for like the rumor mill.
Yes.
So I don't know. It could go either way for me. I think I'm gonna say probably 60%. I believe it though.
Okay. We have no context for Infus Nest and his gang of weird followers. So that's going to kind of lead us into our main topic for tonight. And this is just something I wanted to do, and I think Mac is really entertaining me for this.
No, I love it. I'm into it.
So we wanted to go over just the craziest theories for Solo before it comes out. Like, we just wanted to go out there and just kind of state them on the podcast, and like if one of them ends up becoming true, we can like point back to this podcast this night and say, look,
We said it.
we got it right. But I really doubt almost any of these are probably going to come true. Maybe a couple or a version of them.
Or it's like similar things. We should give our percentages of if we think like our percentages that we think that this particular theory is possible.
Absolutely.
Or like something like it is possible.
And if you're watching live with us right now and you haven't told us what you think, just a crazy out there Solo theory of what's going to happen in the movie, you can comment right now and we'll talk about it in this portion of the show. So let's jump in, and I kind of rearranged them in the order of like craziest to least craziest, like most likely or least likely to most likely. So I'm going to start with one. So here's crazy listener theory from listener Drew. And he said this, and this is pretty crazy. He said Han Solo was born to be a force-sensitive pilot for the Empire. Like, he was grown, basically. And someone stole him and released him into the world on his own. And he becomes like this just crazy pilot, like on his own. And he can use the Force, but he doesn't know it. Number one, timeline doesn't work out. You know, it's the Republic. I will say, though, that the theory that Han Solo might have the Force has been around for a long time.
Yes, and that's why he plays it off as like, oh, I'm just lucky.
It's luck.
It's like, oh, I'm getting by on my charm, but actually it's the Force.
Yeah, like he has the ability to just kind of to tap into it just a little bit when he's flying or something.
Yeah.
But I just like to think he's just a really good pilot.
I think, I mean, not to just like bag on your theory there, Drew, but I tend to just think that like Han Solo is, up until episode 7, I think he is the kind of the antithesis of Luke a little bit.
Right.
In that like he's very worldly, kind of grizzled, and very cynical.
He doesn't even believe in the Force.
Yeah, he doesn't believe in
Luke
it.
and Obi-Wan.
Yeah, and so I just think that he, like, to bring the like a Force sensitivity into it, just kind of, it's just not really in line with his character, I think.
And we've kind of talked about this when the trailer came out. I don't mind Force stuff being in Solo. In fact, I think that would be kind of cool. But you've got to do it in such a way where Solo walks away thinking that's not what it was. Like, that wasn't the Force. Or, like, he's got to be skeptical of it because of what happens, in A New Hope, where he doesn't believe in the Force at all. Yeah, so it's like, who knows? And we just got one of the listener comment from Tina. She said, supposedly Boba Fett is a secret villain in this movie. And we kind of talked about that a little bit last week, of what the chances of Boba Fett might being in the movie of Solo might be. And we both believe that the chances are pretty high for that. And I think everybody would like to see him, at least just at least a cameo.
Yeah, I mean, I heard that there was some Lego packaging, like 4 Solo Lego sets that featured him on it, which would make sense. But I mean, I think he'll at least be in the background or something like that somewhere. It's pretty likely, I'd say.
Now, if this were Marvel, he would show up in the post-credit
scene. In the post-credit scene, right.
Yeah, so, but it's not Marvel.
Yeah.
All right, so that was that was the least likely, in my opinion, the theory, going back to Han Solo being Force sensitive.
I think some of the ones we're about to get into are far more ridiculous, but
listen, I found like some crazy stuff on Reddit when it came to Star Wars theories, and I almost got lost in it.
Reddit is a black hole really as far as
speaking of
Star Wars speculation.
Speaking of black holes, this is a deep cut crazy theory from Reddit. And so, going back to the trailer for Solo, it says, in the trailer, when the Falcon is flying between the tentacles, like at the end, like there's all these giant tentacles like reaching out for the Falcon, and the Falcon is like weaving through them at the end of the trailer. They believe that this might be part of the Kessel Run. And so if we go back to Legends or the old EU, the old canon of Star Wars, an all-powerful Force user named Abloth, which is the mother on Mortis, like that would be the mother. Mac is shaking his head already. Was trapped in the Maw, which is a cluster of black holes, and that is right near Kessel. So basically, their theory is, because Abloth had tentacles, that is Abloth. Which is just like...
And like, you think that is more likely?
Now, like, what is... I don't even know what you're saying right now, because nobody read that series, really. Like, that was on the decline of the EU, in my opinion.
That's like what broke the whole thing. Like, because once you... Yeah. Like, I don't know. Once you introduce... That, like, she's like Thanos, but
yeah, she really was.
Like way
very powerful,
more OP. Yeah, I mean, it's really cool to connect those dots. It's cool.
Yeah,
good theory. I'm gonna put a percentage on it. I'm gonna go 2%.
I'm going to go 0%.
Well, I was just trying to, be a good sport about it.
Actually, this should have been our first theory, because it's the worst.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, whoever you were from Reddit, and if you're watching right now, please forgive us.
They're not.
That's a terrible theory. They're never going to do
awful.
that. The EU is dead. I'm sorry, they're never going back. Okay. All right, so this next theory is for me. I was just thinking of, like, what's a crazy theory I could come up with to share on the podcast to see if anyone, like, just throwing it out there. Let's just see. So this is my theory. So, Mac, you're like the expert on the history of Star Wars and the production of it. You know that Han Solo wasn't always originally going to be a human. Like,
right.
In the first several drafts of Star Wars, he was an alien.
He was a green frog.
Yeah, and yeah. Like he was a weird...
Well, and then there's like a fish version.
Yes.
There's lots of fins, lots of scales, pretty green.
Here's my theory.
Okay.
I think in the movie we're gonna see an alien that looks just like that, and he's gonna have the name either Han or Solo. One of those two, or maybe even both. And that's his name in the movie. And Solo, the Han Solo we know, takes his name. Because that's not his real name. And I really, truly believe this. I don't think Han Solo is his name, just based off some of the things that, like, interviews and stuff. I hope I'm totally wrong on this, by the way.
Yeah, I hate that.
I hate it too, but I think this is the truth.
I'm holding out. I don't think it's going to be that way.
I hope I'm wrong.
But I think the theory is great. Like bringing in some original concept art and everything. Rebels does that all the time. Like everything in Rebels just used to be a Ralph McQuarrie like concept design. I could very easily see that happening in the film. At least like a little cameo. I think a little cameo of that original design, just a creature walking around, would be really cool.
Or his name's Ham Solo.
Ham sandwich.
Ham sandwich. I don't know. But that was my crazy theory. Like, I was just thinking of crazy theories, and I was like, oh, that's a pretty good one. Maybe not. Maybe that's a terrible theory. It's better than the last one, though.
Way better than that one.
I think we can agree on that.
Yeah. So, well, you gave yours. You want me to give my crazy theory now?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, my theory, and I actually think this could be a cool angle to explore, like in the film, but my theory is that Han actually starts out the movie as kind of a double agent type, in like a double agent scenario, where he's actually working for the Empire, And he's like joining into. Yeah, he's like joining up with Beckett's team so he can eventually like kind of stab him in the back and turn him in. And that's why Kira says, her quote.
I know who you really are.
Yeah, and
it's not bad.
So, but then at the end, obviously he turns on. He's a triple agent.
It's very confusing.
Yeah. And so he, yeah, right. So I think that's something that actually potentially could be a cool thing.
Yeah, I think that would be cool.
I mean, I'm at like 5% on that one that could be possible.
I'll go with 10%. How about that?
Wow, I appreciate that. I appreciate the credence you give to my theories.
Well, okay. We've got some listener comments, but I want to get to this one from Salvador because I want to get to that one last because I really actually think it's very likely what he's saying. So I want to get to that last. So let's go back to another crazy theory, just like a wild theory, and of course it's from Reddit.
So black hole of the internet.
And this one made me laugh out loud. Okay, this one just made me laugh out loud because of their reasoning, like their supporting details. It's like, this is the reason why. I was like, okay, that's ridiculous. But here we go. In The Force Awakens, Han takes a quick liking to Rey, even offering her a job on the Falcon, like it's very quickly. Okay, and we know that Rey's parents are nobodies. But the way Han looks at Rey suggests he might know her or she might remind him of someone. Let me pause right there in the middle of the theory and just interject. I think that's just artifacts from... I think Rey actually used to be Han's daughter, but they changed it in the script.
Right. I do too.
So, okay. Pause over. Back into the theory. Rey was originally named Kira in the first few drafts of the Force Awakens script. Okay,
spelled in a way that makes more sense.
Yeah, with a K, not a Q.
Yeah.
And there's no apostrophe. Okay, so now let's consider evidence. Both have an English accent. So... of course they might be related. That makes them related in Star Wars, because if you both have English accents, you might be related.
Of course.
Okay, so
that's how that works.
Like, I almost stopped right there, but I pushed through.
That's the supporting evidence. There it is. Look, the accents tell it all.
And they have similar features. Like, they kind of look alike a little bit. I don't know. I mean, you could tell them... If someone said, okay, Emily Clark is... Daisy Ridley's mother in a movie, like a prequel movie, I'd be like, okay. Like, I mean, I would buy it, but I'm not going to see that right away. Like, it doesn't pop out to me.
Right.
Okay, so going back to this, we know that Emilia Clarke's character name is Kira, right?
Mm-hmm.
In Solo. So Han and Kira from the Solo movie fall in love, but she breaks his heart and leaves with another man. Okay? Kira eventually has a child, Rey, and even goes as far as mentioning the Falcon to her, and that's how Rey knows about the Falcon in The Force Awakens. She says it runs on 14 parsecs in the Kessel Run, and he corrects her, and he says 12.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I mean, I don't know. It sounded a little out there. It's actually... I mean, I don't think it's likely at all. I'm going to still put it at... I'll probably give it a 8%.
I'm going to give this one 12.
12? Wow. You're putting it above mine?
I am. Sorry.
No, I probably about an 8.
They both have English accents. I mean,
what more proof do you need?
They've got to be related.
Yeah. I mean... whatever. That is kind of a funny thing. If you're an Imperial, like, you're probably British. You're probably a white man. Like,
well, the idea always was, if you have a British accent, you're probably from the core worlds, like
because I mean it's
the inner rim and the rich people.
Yeah, in universe, a British accent is a Coruscant accent, and then everybody in the core worlds they think they're Coruscant, so they emulate it.
Right.
Yeah. But I mean, no, I don't know. It could be fun. I don't need that kind of interconnectivity between
it's a little too
Solo
much.
and
I like the interconnectivity between. Like, I think they should do that more with the spinoffs. Like, find some way to make it contribute to what's happening now in the saga. I think that would be pretty cool. I always think that Rebels does a good job of that, or they did a good job of that.
Yeah, for sure.
But this is like a little too much. It's too heavy-handed for me.
Yeah, I'm actually of a different mind than you on. I like the spin-offs to be just like real isolated. I think Rogue One actually because you know how much I love Rogue One.
Yeah.
One thing that I actually think was actually to its detriment is it felt like just New Hope's greatest hits, like kind of recycled again.
Sure.
Got to bring in all the key things from New Hope, but yeah, so I actually like the standalone films be a little bit more isolated. But if it's something in a thing like Rebels, I actually like that. If it wants to touch on some main events occasionally, that's great just to tie it in. But most of Rebels is on its own; it's its own thing. But they check in every once in a while, like with characters from the movies. So
yeah. Okay, let's move on to our next theory. And this theory, we have discussed it before in the podcast, and I kind of like stole it a little bit from Anthony Bresnikan from EW. And when I say stole it, I mean I just heard him say it, and I was like, yeah, I like that. I'm gonna go with that. I'm gonna choose to believe that until I'm proven wrong. So his theory, and he doesn't know anything about this, and if anybody would know, he's the guy to know, because he gets to interview everyone like behind the scenes and stuff. But his theory basically was that the villain in Han Solo's in the Han Solo movie, Enfys Nest, which is again terrible name,
awful name,
hard to say, really hard.
You know what? We're stuck with it, so it is what it is.
His theory is that the villain is Han Solo's father and Kylo Ren's other grandfather. I was like, okay, I think that would be a cool twist, but like we discussed before, I think that's a better twist for Kylo Ren, not necessarily Han Solo.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't like that for Han. I don't want Han to have any his connection to the Skywalker line is Leia, and I think that's it. I think that's good for him. He doesn't need to be any more connected to anything like that. So
agreed.
But
what are you going to go with the likelihood of this?
This one I think is out of any of them, I would probably lend the most credence to. I'm gonna say 15.
I'm gonna go with 14.
Just one.
I'm doing the Price is Right with you.
That way, if it doesn't happen, I was just more I was a little more wrong than you. Right.
But if it's
not
right,
that either of us are placing this very much stock in this, but
no. Okay, so I read another crazy theory from Reddit, but it's not too crazy.
You gotta get off Reddit, Alex.
I've never been on it. This is really the first time I was really on it. I was like, this is crazy stuff.
Yeah, wild.
The beach planet from the Solo trailer with all the monoliths that we kind of discussed we think might be Sith related. It kind of looks Sithy. It looks strange. Is Rakata Prime
from KOTOR
from Knights of the Old Republic. And when I was thinking back, I was like, actually, there were a lot of monoliths that look just like that on that planet when you're running around. And it's
that's true.
It's a beach planet, just like that.
Yeah. We also had mentioned that kind of in Legends, Corellia had, what was the moon?
Centerpoint Station?
Yeah, Centerpoint Station. How we had kind of mentioned how that was kind of something like in essence, it was kind of like the Starforge, which is connected to the Rakata Empire. So that's kind of a cool bit of connective tissue there.
Here's what I think. I think when you're making a Star Wars movie, you probably are going to look at things that have already been created. And it's very possible they were just going through photos and they saw something and it stuck with them and they created something kind of similar. Just because it looks cool. I mean, it's a cool design, so like use it. I don't think it's that planet though.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think it would be cool. Actually, I don't know. I don't know if it would be cool or not.
It's just like, how do you... I mean, I guess you could just say that's what it is, and it would be cool for, like, you know...
For people who spend, time digging into the extra materials and everything, but...
It would mean nothing to anybody
Wouldn't mean anything to anybody else, so...
But, honestly, I feel like it would create such a firestorm of, like... The Starforge is out there, and all this stuff would start happening that you just like, what's the point of doing that?
Yeah. I'm going to put that at 1%.
I'm going to go with 0.5. No, I'm going to go with 2. Okay. Another crazy theory from Reddit. Here we go. In the old EU, which is the Legends, it was established that Han was of a royal bloodline, a.k.a. a Carillion prince. And, like, I didn't even know that. Like, that went over my head. I don't think I've ever caught that from the Legends. And I've read a lot of Legends stuff.
My thought is that it must be from something that was just like a one-off that they like, hey, we're trying to be...
novel or like...
Something like that. They were trying to be like, hey, here's this thing. And then just nobody else took it and ran with it. Because they didn't have really any direction.
That.
Like... I mean, back in the EU days, it was basically just like, okay, well, let's look at what everybody else has written and then take what I want. And, because it contradicted itself all the time. So my thoughts is like, it must have just been in like one mention somewhere in some like kind of obscure piece of, of story.
It is really weird. And so basically like he's of a royal bloodline on his planet and he just didn't know it. And, that's why in the trailer, Kira's saying, I know who you really are. But, I mean, come on. Based off context clues, she's just saying, like, I know who you really are. You're a smuggler. You're not, that's what I get from the trailer. Like, she's just saying, like, you're a scoundrel. You're up to no good. Or even saying, like, you appear to be bad, but you're actually a good person deep down. Like, one of those type of things.
I think she's talking about his insecurities. With that, yeah. I think, in like his like fear, I think she's seeing through kind of his swagger that he puts on and everything, and seeing that deep down he's actually kind of a insecure guy.
Yeah, for sure. And then I don't know, some of it's really weird, but then it goes on to say like, what if Enfys Nest is actually Kira in disguise? Trying to bring Han back to Corellia because he's the prince or something.
So she's like, oh hey, I'm gonna be on this crew, but then like when nobody's looking, she like sneaks away and puts the mask on and then hops on top of the train to find everybody.
Now I will actually I do say like strip the other part away from it. Going with the idea that Enfys Nest is actually Kira does intrigue me. Because you think it's a man under there. But clearly it has very long hair.
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's a man, but it could be a woman.
Yeah. I mean, I think either way it's not Kira, but...
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. Who knows? Watch that one be it. Like, that's going to
be the one. That's it.
Kira is Enfys Nest. You heard it here first. Okay, next one, and we're getting close to the end. I started reading this and I stopped. It said something about the Knights of Ren and the villains of Solo are connected. Enfys means rainbow in Welsh, and
I'm out.
I literally typed on the computer. I stopped reading this theory because it was so out there. But once
you bring the Welsh root of the word, I'm out.
I did scroll down in the comments, and there are some comments in there that I did like. So the comment was, Solo will kill Ness, the guy in the mask, and take his helmet as a trophy. Ben Solo finds it one day and uses it as an inspiration for his Kylo Ren helmet. And I was like, that's pretty plausible.
That's fine. I have no problems with that. That's fine.
No.
Great.
I'm going to give that a 35%.
Yeah, I'll go 31.
I 31%. Think that's, out of all the theories really so far, I feel like that's probably very, very plausible. Of like, they kill him, he kind of takes his helmet and throws it in the back, and Ben Solo finds it one day, and he's like, this is really cool.
And like, you don't have to show like little Ben Solo seeing it or anything in the movie. Just like if Han ends up with the mask, you can follow it from there. You can connect the dots.
You just toss it over his shoulder, whatever. Just like, it's somewhere in the Falcon, and we can connect the dots. That I'm sure Ben Solo found that and loved it. He's a psychopath. All right.
Right.
The next one is from our friend Mal. Do you want to read this one for us, Mac?
Yes. So Mal hit me up on Facebook when we were asking for theories, and he said, this is Mal Smith. He said that his theory is Han is actually working for the most feared mob boss on Tatooine and Naboo that we know of, Jar Jar Binks. I mean, Jar Jar uses his political powers to, pull a lot of strings, and he kind of has immunity to that, diplomatic immunity, and he can really fund his crime operations. That's 100%. I tried so hard.
100%, that's true.
I tried so hard. I struggled with that.
I have no doubt in my mind that Jar Jar is the one pulling the strings in this movie.
I mean,
we will see Jar Jar again.
Yep. Aftermath was not his end.
It's not his end.
I actually loved the ending that Jar Jar got.
It's so sad.
It's sad, but it's great. It satisfied me. It fulfilled me.
It's so sad. Okay, last one from listener Salvador, which is, he said in the comments, our number one fan. And I think I'm going to have to agree with him. Like, he is.
He is.
Salvador said, okay, this is not a crazy theory, but I think Chewie and Han will meet in a risky situation. That's what this movie should have been called. Risky situation.
A risky situation.
Yeah. Han will liberate him from a group of slave smugglers, and they'll have to run for their lives.
I'm going to go ahead and say 98%.
I think we're going to see something very similar to that, at least. We know from like Legends, that's how it happened. Like, Chewbacca was a slave, and Han Solo saved him from slavery, and Chewbacca owes him a life debt.
That's always been the kind of the backstory for their relationship. Like in any iteration, pretty much it's always followed that.
I think it's the opposite.
I do too. I
think they're going to bait and switch us, and it's actually Chewbacca has saved Han Solo's life.
Yes.
Han Solo, he won't say this, but he has given his life to Chewbacca.
Yeah. Chewie has saved Han's life more time, like throughout all the movies and books and everything. Like, Chewie saved Han's life multiple times, more than enough to, make up for him saving, Han saving Chewie one time.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I agree with you. I think it would be kind of a cool, cool twist for fans, if that was the way it went.
Yeah. I really like that, so I think that was a good comment. I think that was well thought out, and a million times better than the majority of the things that I just read on this podcast.
Yes, which were trash.
Which was really fun, though. I mean, just like, man, people really, the thing was, when I was reading these on Reddit, people bought into it. Like, they believed their own theories. Like, one of the funnest things I think being a Star Wars fan is coming up with theories, but you cannot get so like wound up in them because they're most likely not going to happen.
They're not going to be wrong. Yeah, I mean they're super fun to talk about. Like I've really enjoyed just going through these, even though I think most of these have been terrible.
Yeah, they're terrible. They're awful.
Yeah. I mean, mine was equally awful.
Yeah. Well.
So.
All right. So that will just about do it. Unless you got any more theories, Mac.
I think I'm about theoried out.
Any crazy theories? All right. So yeah, I'm pretty theoried out too. So that will do it for our main segment of the episode, and we're going to transition into constructing a lightsaber.
So constructing the lightsaber is the part of our show where we really dive into some actual production facts from the making of the Star Wars movies. So, any kind of on-set stories, any kind of, we might highlight individual people involved in the filmmaking process. And that's what we're going to be doing today. Today we are talking about the man behind the dented helmet, Jeremy Bulloch. He was the original actor that played Boba Fett in The Empire Strikes Back, and then again in Return of the Jedi.
And he was a pilot in Episode 3.
I was going to get to that. He's also got one other cameo that I don't know if you know about. It's a little bit deeper of a cut.
Cool.
But yeah, so Jeremy Bulloch is a really great guy. He is a huge advocate and champion for Star Wars. He's a huge fan himself, which I think is kind of what draws people to him. Like he's got kind of a little cult that follows him.
Just like Enfys Nest will one day.
Yeah, right. But yeah, so Jeremy Bulloch, he kind of got his start in theater. That was his big a few of his first big breaks were in theater. But his brother was an associate producer on The Empire Strikes Back. And yeah, so basically Boba Fett's costume, the boots, they're size 10. And they just needed somebody with size 10 feet to fill the role.
Oh, wow.
His brother was like, hey, my brother has size 10 feet. And that's how Jeremy Bulloch ended up being one of the most iconic characters of all time.
That's so awesome.
Like, the costume fit him. That was the only thing that made him,
Could you imagine?
Eligible.
Man,
yeah, that's
cool.
That's the coolest thing that could ever happen to you. I think it's like, hey, your body fits this costume. You can be in this movie. Jeremy saw it. He saw the costume and everything, and immediately just fell in love with it. He loves the character of Boba Fett. He's got thoughts on like all of the different backstories. He's very vocal in like discussing some of the changes that have taken place to the character, like so the overdubbing of his lines, and then again bringing in with Tamora Morrison. Is that his name?
Yes.
Yeah. Later for the special editions, but he based Boba Fett's kind of mannerisms and posture and everything off of Clint Eastwood, actually, which I thought was kind of cool. Specifically, A Fistful of Dollars was kind of one of Clint Eastwood's big hits.
He even has that kind of half cape.
And that's what, that's what kind of inspired that choice for him. But like if you think about Clint Eastwood in Star Wars, it's Boba Fett. Like it lines up perfectly.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
Yeah. So while he was on set as Boba Fett, there's a couple of kind of notorious mishaps. One was that he was like David Prowse in Darth Vader's suit. He was saying the lines so that actors could respond to it and everything like that, even though they would be dubbed over later. When some stormtroopers are pulling Han Solo up into Slave One, Boba Fett's ship, the line is "Put Captain Solo in the cargo hold."
Yeah.
for the life of him, like no matter how many times they did it, he always said, "Put Captain Cargo in the solo hold." So that was something he could just never get right. But an even bigger mishap was in the carbonite room, where they're actually doing the "I love you, I know" scene and everything like that. They were walking kind of on the walkway, and he was walking behind Vader, stepped on his cape, and so Jeremy Bulloch and David Prowse go tumbling.
You're kidding?
And they're just no. So, like, two of Star Wars' most iconic villains are just on the floor.
Down, out for the count. Boba Fett and Darth Vader done for.
Yeah, so he kind of got he got laughed at a lot on set. Is basically what I'm saying. But he actually he said the filming experience was one of his favorites.
Yeah.
Because at the same time that he was playing Boba Fett, he was doing theater performances at night. So like at 5:30 when filming stops on Empire Strikes Back, he'd go over to the theater and perform there. He said he was like super tired because he was just being run ragged doing theater stuff, and so he would come on set and where you just have to stand there for most of the day.
Yeah.
He said that was like a rest for him. So
being Boba Fett is restful.
Yeah, that's what he did to relax, get a break. So,
wow.
Yeah, like I said, he's kind of a huge, icon of Star Wars fandom and everything. He's been, like you said, he was Captain Colton in Revenge of the Sith, so George Lucas put him back in there, kind of just as a nice little cameo.
You think that was like his kind of olive branch of like, hey, I'm sorry we replaced you, but like you're still in Star Wars?
Yeah, I don't know. It might have been something like that. Just kind of a token of goodwill. Yeah. It definitely could have been. I don't know. I think they had a very good relationship, and I mean Jeremy Bulloch, his contributions are all still there.
Right.
He didn't do the original voice.
Oh, that wasn't him?
Yeah. No, he had. I can't remember it's like Whit Green or something.
Okay, I thought it was him.
Some other actor actually. The real gravelly voice.
Yes,
that you see in the originals and some of the early special editions. That's not Jeremy Bulloch. None of his lines actually made it into any final cuts.
Yeah, because he kept saying solo hold.
Exactly. So, but it didn't matter.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So, but he played Captain Colton, and then he played an Imperial officer as well in Empire Strikes Back. Basically, they were on set and he's like taking the Boba Fett costume off because they wrapped and he's like sweaty and stuff, and they were like, Jeremy, get in this other costume. We don't have anybody else to play the part. You're going back in.
So again, you just fit.
Yeah, he just fit. I would imagine an Imperial officer's uniform's a little bit easier to fit than like the Boba Fett costume. That one's a little bit more made to order.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Shekel is the name of his other character, so his third character.
What a great Star Wars name. See, that's a good Star Wars name.
Yeah, exactly. But in Cloud City, the officer that kind of like grabs hold of Leia at one point,
yeah,
that's Jeremy Bulloch.
I've never noticed that.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So
you learn something new with constructing a lightsaber. I literally, every time you talk, I learn something, Mac.
Every time I talk?
Every time. Okay. You're just full of wisdom and knowledge.
And yet you're the teacher professionally, and I'm not.
Well, I teach 7th graders, so you're a little older than that. Sweet.
Yeah.
This is really good, man.
Yeah. But I mean, so Jeremy Bulloch's like a huge Star Wars fan as well. He's currently attempting to learn Mandalorian so that he can answer fans' questions in Mandalorian. It's not going well.
The only thing that I know in Mandalorian is like Berserker, and that's like armor, like Berserker Gam or something. It means armor. That's it.
No idea. He said it wasn't going very well, but his office at home is basically a Boba Fett museum. He just has like every piece of memorabilia that's come out. Awesome. He's not really a Star Wars fan. He's a Boba Fett fan. Like the character he played, he's just super obsessed with.
I mean, of course.
I mean, it's the coolest one. So,
yeah. I mean, he looks really cool.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Mac. Well, I mean, I think it's time to share some big news. Is that okay with you? I mean,
I think so. I mean, we've kept people waiting. We've teased it a little bit. We've made a couple posts here and there.
Yeah, some big news coming. So I think we should. Should we do a drum roll or something? Can you add that in post-production?
I can. So the podcast version will officially have a drum roll. It'll go here.
So we're super excited to announce that the week of April 9th, we'll be dropping a podcast. It won't be live, but we will be dropping a podcast on iTunes. We are going to be interviewing author John Jackson Miller, who wrote such books as Kenobi.
That one.
If you're on the live stream, you can see it right now. He wrote this book. He also wrote this book, Knight Errant, which is a great Star Wars book. John Jackson Miller, right there. We're going to be interviewing him the week of April 9th. He also wrote the Knights of the Old Republic comic book series,
they're fantastic.
Considered
they're so
probably
good.
Some of the best Star Wars comics ever created.
Yeah, they're so good.
And he actually has a Star Wars adventure comic coming out the week previous, and so we'll be talking to him about that, and of course his books that he has written for Star Wars, and any plans that he might have in the future for Star Wars. So please, the week of April 9th, make sure you download that episode. We'll put a link here on our Facebook page and, of course, on Twitter and YouTube. So please make sure you're there for that, because that is going to be big time for us.
Yeah.
And it is just so cool to have a Star Wars author on our podcast.
I can't wait. We're already working on our questions and getting studied up and everything. We're really looking forward to it. It should be great. It's definitely, I think, the biggest thing we'll have done so far.
Yeah,
it's a huge milestone for us. So you'll want to be there for it. You'll want to make sure you listen in.
Yeah. I'm so pumped. Like, he was such a nice guy. Like, when I asked him about it and stuff, and so I'm so pumped about it. He's a great writer. He's contributed to Star Wars, I think, that in a way that a lot of people don't realize, and so it's going to be really cool for him to be on our podcast.
Yep,
coming up real soon. So make sure you are subscribed to us on iTunes or Google Play, or if you can subscribe on Google Play. I'm not even sure you can do that. So please make sure you like us, subscribe on iTunes, and
leave us a rating and a review on iTunes. Do that. It's great.
5-star review, please.
So if you haven't done it,
do 1 star.
Go to iTunes right now and just rate 5 stars all the way.
And here's why, because like we said at the beginning of the show, it really helps us get our brand out there, and we want to share, our perspective and our love of Star Wars with everybody else. And so the way the algorithm works, the more reviews you have, the more likely people are going to be able to see your podcast.
Yep.
So if you could do that, and then just tell someone about us, hey, listen to our friend's podcast. That's listener word of mouth, as Steele Saunders always says.
Podcasts live on word of mouth. That's
right.
The number one way that we get new listeners and everything like that. Do that. Follow us on Twitter, tweet us there.
You can email us, swescapepod@gmail.com, if it's more of longer form. You can find us on Twitter. It's the same at swescapepod. And then you're here on Facebook right now if you're watching, and then iTunes if you're listening. So
like the page, share it, tell a friend.
And on YouTube.
Right, yep. Videos go up on YouTube too. So.
That's right.
Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in. It's been a great show. I've had a lot of fun. And we're really looking forward to that John Jackson Miller interview. So be on the lookout for that. We'll be keeping, updating and everything like that. Yeah. So, but until next time, may the force be with you.
Always. Peace out.
Bye.